Okay, hi. So welcome to the fourth part of the five-part video series for our review for the second quarter exam. So aside from the road not taken, um, the gift of the Magi, and the thief who became a disciple, there are other texts that you are going to encounter in your examination paper. So some of those texts are from M. Canare. I don't know who this person is, so maybe I'll research later kung kinsa ni siya. So there are going to be quotes in your exam, and here on the boxes, in your reviewer, we're going to find perhaps some maybe the questions that might appear in the exam and maybe the answers to those questions. So you have to familiarize not only the text, not only this one, okay, not only this one, but also you have to familiarize these ones as well, kaning mga nasa box. Okay, so I'm going to read this and then we're going to talk about this as well as those that are in the boxes. So let's start with this first quote. So remember that we are not alone in this battle. Change the way we treat each other, do things with kindness, live with a grateful heart. All this shall pass in silence. By M. Canare. So we have a quote here by M. Canare, and there are a lot of things na M. Canare is trying to tell us. So perhaps uh, one of some of the things that she mentions is that we have to remember that we're not alone. There's a battle. We have to change the way we treat each other. Also, we have to do things in kindness with a grateful heart, and this all too shall pass. So, mamaya din namin. So, let's try to look into these boxes. So, the primary message of the verse, prioritize kindness and gratitude. That is the primary message. Now, the point here is that how are you going to know that that is the primary message of the verse, right? So this is the verse, by the way, verse now. So how do you know that is the primary? When you talk about primary, it means that is the primal, meaning that is the first. Okay, when something is the first, it could also mean that it is the most important. But when you talk about primary message, that you could interpret it literally na mao siya ang pinakauna. But in another sense, when you talk about primary, it also means that uh, it is important. It's the main thing. Okay. So are we really sure? Muna ang question, no? Are we really sure that the primary message of the verse is prioritizing kindness and gratitude? So let us look at the quote or the verse. So primarily, so unsang iyang una dimension, the thing that is first mentioned is remember that we are not alone in this battle. Okay, so this is the primary, meaning the first thing that is mentioned. So there's a battle and we have to remember that we are not alone in the battle. Okay, second thing, change the way we treat each other. So this implies that whatever we do, we have to change it. This also implies that the way we are treating each other could be negative. So if that is the case, we have to change it. But the question is, if we are positively treating each other, do we still have to change the way we treat each other? Well, that's one question. Do things with kindness. Okay, the kindness now appears in the middle of the verse. Do things with kindness. Live with a grateful heart. Grateful, thankful. Okay, the other term for grateful is thankful. Live with a grateful heart. All this shall pass in silence. So the primary message, prioritizing kindness and gratitude, that could be the correct answer in the exam. But if you are really going to think about it, the primary message is that you have to continue struggling That is the primary message. How do I know? How do I say this? One way of really learning what is the primary message is not only looking at the first thing, but also looking at the last thing. Okay? Kung unsa ang nahitabo sa introduction o sa conclusion, mao na ang primary, sana siya? Primary message. Okay? So if you're going to look at this, remember that we are not alone in this battle. So there's a battle, meaning there is struggle. Okay? Na ay bugno diha. And then at the last part, last sentence, all this shall pass in silence. So all this, unsa nga this yang ipasabot, the this is the battle. Okay, all these battles, this battle shall pass, meaning mahuman na in silence. So in the introduction, the first sentence, we're told that there's a battle. In the last sentence, we're told that this battle will pass. Mahuman. So, meaning there is struggle here. Okay. And maybe the battle is life. And life is a great struggle. That I think is the primary message of this verse. And then perhaps the secondary message of the verse is that as you go on with the battle, we have to do the battling with kindness and with a grateful heart. So see, it's kasi kung ano naman siya, no, it's become paradoxical ba? Na murag nagsukway siya because we now have to treat each other with kindness and we have to live with a grateful heart. Why should we live with a grateful heart when we are in a battle? Battle. But thank you, you're hitting me. Thank you. Ano ba? Thank you, you're stabbing me right now. Thank you. Ano ba ang atong pasabutan na? Or do all things with kindness. I'm gonna kill you. Okay, battle man. Excuse me, I'm gonna stab you. Right? Respectfully, I'm gonna kill you. Is that it? So maybe that is not what the verse is saying. Maybe the verse is saying life is a battle indeed. There are challenges that you are going to encounter. But when you encounter people, you do not treat the people as the enemy. You treat the people as with kindness. You treat the people with a grateful heart. Maybe that is the point of this verse. But you can see there that the verse or the quote of Canare is a little bit inconsistent. No? Hindi siya consistent, hindi siya kanang kuan siya ba? It contradicts itself in a way. But that is the point. I think the primary message is not prioritizing kindness and gratitude, but believing that life is a battle. And despite it being a battle, it too shall pass. I think that is a primary message. But again, if you see this sa exam, that is the correct answer. Okay. How the verse suggests individuals to contribute positive change during challenging times. So here are some of the suggestions, or actually these are imperatives, meaning sa imperative, it's a command. Okay? These are the commands that the verse is commanding us. So change the way we treat each other. Do all things with kindness. Live with a grateful heart. So kaning tulo ka sentences, these three sentences, these are the suggestions. These are the imperatives that the quote is telling us. Ginsa man ako pagkabalo na these are the suggestions. One thing to know or to note is that if the sentence starts with a verb, that is an imperative. Again, if the sentence starts with a verb, that is an imperative, that is a suggestion, that is a command. Okay, so for example, change the way we treat each other. Do all things with kindness, live with a grateful heart. These are verbs. Okay, so verb ang nagsugod. If a sentence starts with a verb, that is an imperative, that is a suggestion, that is a command. So what are the commands telling us? The commands are telling us na uh, acts of kindness. These are acts of kindness. Change the way we treat each other, do things with kindness, live with a grateful heart. So those are, you know, uh, those are close terms to kindness. So maybe that's the correct answer, through acts of kindness. Okay, let's proceed. The verse advocates for a change of behavior and mindset by emphasizing gratitude and kindness. So the verse advocates, ang sama ng advocates, we talk about advocate, uh, that is the thing or the belief that you are putting forward, or that is the belief that you are telling the people to adhere to, okay, or to believe as well. So mana siya advocate. So unsa ang value na gina-push sa 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 quote? So ang gina-push niya kay gratitude and kindness. So how do we know this? Because we see that in the verse itself. Diba? Do things with kindness, yeah, with a grateful heart. So grateful and gratitude, these are similar terms. Okay, when you have a grateful heart, you have also you have gratitude. Okay, so thankful, and then also kindness. You also have the word there. So it's already there. Now all this shall pass in silence. Kaning all this shall pass. This is an idiom. Okay. Now an idiom is an expression that doesn't literally mean that thing, but it means another thing. Okay. So an idiom is an expression that means another thing, apart from its literal meaning. So for example, uh, an idiom could be um, out of order. That is one common idiom. Kanang term na out of order, you attach that term to any device or equipment that doesn't work anymore, na wala na nag-function. Right? Instead of saying that this device doesn't function anymore, instead of saying that long sentence, you could just write down out of order and stick that post on the malfunctioning equipment, right? So an idiom's function is that it shortens what is supposed to be a long expression. It shortcuts the the supposedly long sentence. Another point or characteristic of an idiom is that it doesn't mean what it means in the literal sense. So di siya literal. So for example, if you talk about out of order, kung literal ni mo na siya sabot ng out, gawas. Order, order, diba? It's arrangement. So meaning it is out of the arrangement mo ng out of order. So the out of arrangement ba? For example, if you have a cell phone and then it doesn't function anymore, it is out of order, right? Pero it's still in order, right? Na-arrange mo gyapon siya tarong nalay parts na di na mag-work. Or maybe sometimes it also works that way. Kaya may mga butang na madaot if uh, it, it is the arrangement is not good. So maybe that could also work. So that is one idiom. Another idiom is it's raining cats and dogs. So that's an idiom. And it doesn't literally mean na nag-aulan dyan og cats and dogs, right? It rains water, right? Pero when you say it rains cats and dogs, it only means that the rain is torrential, meaning the rain is heavy. Okay, so uh, that is an idiom. What else? Sa Tagalog, for example, if you hear the term suntok sa buwan, okay, suntok sa buwan is an idiom. You can't literally suntok the buwan, right? Because you can't do that, of course. But the point is, when you say suntok sa buwan, it means that you are aiming for the best, but you know that you can't really do it. But again, you are aiming for that. You are aiming for an impossible objective or impossible desire while being aware that you won't be able to really achieve it. Mana siya suntok sa buwan. So in this case, all this shall pass in silence. Kaning all this shall pass, that is an idiom. Okay. What does that mean? It means difficulties are temporary and will fade away quietly. So mana siya yung sabot. All this shall pass, it means mahuman ra ni. Okay, kung sa Bisaya to. Mahuman ra na. Kaya mahuman ra na. So agi ilang kaya mahuman ra na. That is the point. Okay. So yeah, those are the stuff related to this quote. Now let's proceed to the next quote. We have three quotes here. Okay, so we're going to discuss this one by one. So the next thing is this: saying po and opo as a sign of respect, a part of culture we must protect. Uy, poem din. This habit must be kept because our roots it reflects. Char when si Canare. Okay, so we have here a poem, a little verse by Canare, a rhyming verse. Okay, nag-rhyme ang respect sa protect, kept, and reflect. Okay, so let's see what are the possible questions or the possible answers. The expressions po and opo signify humility and respect. Okay, in a Tagalog language or in the Tagalog culture, when you say po and opo, this signifies humility and respect indeed. So mo na nga natin yung mga po and opo expressions. Okay, saying po and opo connects us to the roots of the culture. So the writer or the poet here, Canare, is telling us that when you say opo and opo, that is uh, a result or coming from the roots of our culture. Okay, emphasizing the role of language in preserving culture. So what this thing tells us is that when you use po and opo, you are preserving the culture. It's somehow preserving. Okay. When you say preserve, you retain something as it is. Okay. So when you preserve your culture, you do not let your culture to drift away. You want to retain it as it is. You have to maintain it. Okay, mo na ginahingan niya. So we can maintain our culture by saying po and opo. Okay, true. These are the stuff that you are going to familiarize so that you can achieve or earn higher scores in your exam. But really, if you want to think, which is our goal here in school, we have to think. Really, po and opo they signify humility and respect, but only in the Tagalog culture. Because in American culture, for example, they don't say po and opo, but still they show humility and respect. Let's go back to the Philippines. In the Bisaya culture, we are Bisaya, right? Because we live here in Bisaya speaking areas. We are in Davao, we speak Bisaya. We don't say po and opo because these are Tagalog expressions. However, in our current language, sometimes we hear this, right? Nagpila po ng mani, di ba? Sometimes you say that. Opo, siya po to, di ba? Sometimes there are po and opos that are intruding into our own language, but really, we don't use po and opo. However, while we do not use po and opo, we still signify humility and respect. How do we do that as Bisaya? We say call, say te, right? Pila ni call, pila ni te. We also show that in our tone, right? Our tone could be, we may adjust our tone based on the respect that we show. So for example, if you don't have respect, we could just say, "Pila ni," right? But if we want to emphasize our respect and humility, perhaps we could say, "Nagpila ni te." Murag humupo na to gamay ato ang tone ba, right? So that is how we express our humility, respect as a Bisaya culture. So yeah, my point here is that we have our own culture, kaning culture na ginamit dire. This is Tagalog culture, right? But we have our own culture. We're not Tagalogs, we're Bisaya. So if we say po and opo, we are we are preserving the Tagalog culture, right? But we are not preserving the Bisaya culture. By preserving one culture, we forget our own. So man ako ang point. My point is that it's okay not to say po and opo, especially when we are here. Because by saying po and opo, we're only preserving the Tagalog culture. And while doing that, we forget to preserve our own Bisaya culture, right? So that is my politics against this set of questions. Pero again, this is the exam, right? So that is the problem in the educational system because the exam is anyway. Here is another stuff. Saying po and opo must be kept in order to highlight the importance of tradition. Yeah, that is true. When you keep on saying the things that are reflections of your culture, for example, po and opo, when you keep on saying that, you tend to maintain or preserve the tradition or the culture. And therefore, when that culture or tradition is being preserved, it only means that that is important. So yeah, by highlighting po and opo, you are highlighting the importance of the Tagalog tradition. What about the Bisaya tradition? Right? Nobody writes about that. Nobody respects Bisaya in the school setting. Pag kuan ni buwan ng wika during August, ipatagalog jud ta. Pero pag magbisaya ta, dito pwede magbisaya kay buwan ng wika. Which is funny, you know? Nagay tayo subject na Filipino. What for? So that we can understand the Tagalogs? Why? Kailangan mo natin sila i-understand. We can apply the same logic sa English, but it's practical to learn English because the language of the world is English. So tama lang ang mag-study tag English, but why do we have to study Filipino? Anyway, the point here is that the po and opo must be kept so that we can highlight the importance of tradition. So that is the point of M. Canare. I don't know who this person is, but it's funny because M. Canare is telling us that we have to preserve po and opo. But at the same time, this person is using English. No? Kanang, huh? May preserve ang po and opo, pero nag-English ka nga naman. Diba? Diba? It's funny. Your test paper is funny. So anyway, here is the last quote that we're going to analyze. Living, living today, okay, living today with our own rhythm and valuing oneself is hard to give in. But in this hectic world, we still must find a space in our hearts to understand. M. Canary, once again. Pantay lang dyan sa M. Canary. Ako nang research kinsa ni siya. So, yeah, once again, living today with our own rhythm. So meaning we have our own lives, we have our own patterns, and valuing oneself is hard to give in. So M. Canary is telling us that we are living individually, but at the same time, it is hard to value our own self. Okay, it's hard to give in, man. But in this hectic world, in this busy, hectic, busy, in this busy world, we still must find a space in our hearts to understand. Okay, so despite na busy kayong kalibutan, we must still find a space in our hearts to understand. To understand what? To understand ourselves, to understand the world, to understand the people. Let's see. So here, in the first box, living today with our own rhythm. This means resisting societal expectations. So according to the questions and your test paper, this quote, living today with our own rhythm, means resisting societal expectations. You have to remember that. But in our own interpretation, living today with our own rhythm, this only means that we are unique individuals. We have our own patterns, where we have our own formulas, we have our own tendencies, mga pasabot sa rhythm. Okay, we have our own music, kumbaga. So we're all different, we're all unique. I think that is what this line means, dili siya resisting societal expectations. But yeah, you have to remember that because that could be the correct answer. Next, the verse conveys the difficulty of valuing oneself in the contemporary world through highlighting societal pressures. Okay, let's unpack this statement. The verse, this one, the verse conveys or shows the difficulty of valuing oneself in the contemporary world. Contemporary, what does that mean? When you say contemporary, it means the present, okay, the present time, contemporary. So valuing oneself in the contemporary world, meaning you give importance to yourself in the present time. Okay, there's a difficulty in that. Lisod daw na according to the poem. Okay, what makes it lisod? According to the poem, it is lisod because of societal pressures. Okay, asa man dapitan ng societal pressures, there is a verse. Here sa hectic world. Okay, so in this term, we could infer that maunang makaingon sa speaker ani nga lisod i-value ang oneself because the world is hectic, because the world is busy. Okay, mo na ang point niya. Okay, now let's proceed. It is essential to find a space in our hearts to understand in order to, according to the poem, navigate relationships. I do not know why the answer is this, pero apparently this poem is telling us that we must find the space in our hearts to understand. Di ba kanina when I read this, ako, understand who, understand what, understand where, what, why. So maybe the person or M. Canare is telling us to understand other people. Okay, pag-abot diri, navigate relationships naman. So meaning your interaction with other people. So maybe we must find a space in our hearts so that we can understand other people. Mo siguro na iya ang ginamit. Okay. 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 Here, the last thing, the verse addresses the tension between individuality and societal demands in the pursuit of understanding oneself. So let us unpack this. The verse addresses the tension between individuality. Diba? I told you earlier na today we have our own rhythm. This means uniqueness, individuality. Okay, we have that. Individuality and societal demands. Where's the societal demands? Kaning hectic world. So there's a tension or a clash between our own identity and the business of the world. So na siya clash, na siya tension. So how is the poem, money ang question, how is the poem settle demands in the pursuit of understanding? How is the poem addressing this tension? So the poem is addressing this tension by acknowledging acknowledging the need for balance. So kailangan daw i-balance ang imong own rhythm, balance nimo yung imong individuality and the demands of the society. Mo lang daw siyang i-balance. To be honest, I do not see the balance, kaning the need for balance. I do not see that in the poem. There are no words or expressions here that convey balance. Okay. Asa may balance na we still must find a space. What the verse is telling us to do finally is we must still find a space in our hearts to understand. Okay. There's no balance there. Kinaingnan lang ta no. Kailangan na to hmm, mag-meditate. Kailangan na to find peace sa to ang hearts. So we can understand. Which to me is a very there's some stupidity in the poem of Canare, but it's not talking about balance, man. It's talking about finding a space in our heart. And then when we find the space to understand, we're understanding the relationships. Does that mean that does that mean balance, understanding relationships? But anyway, this is what the exam is telling you to remember, acknowledging the need for balance. So, yeah, that is what this poem is telling us according to the exam. So, do I agree with the statements with the boxes? I do not agree. Do I agree with the verses? I do not agree with the verses. I think these are badly written. These are bad poems for me. These are stupid poems, to be honest. Diba na ni? I-preserve niyo ba the imong culture from nag-English? Diba? Kani kay, this is, unsa ba? This is hypocritical. This is pretentious. Kami man ang term, pretentious. Kanang, ga-pretend ba nga kabalo? Wala. It pretends that it knows something, but it doesn't know anything. We still must find a space. Wala ka nang, nag-struggle na ka to find your own rhythm. Yan, nag-struggle na po ka kay busy ang kalibutan. And still, the poem is telling you to find a space. Like, what? Doha na imo ang ginahandle, handlon ba siya gisa? Mura ka ng kuhan siya ba? It pretends that it knows the secret of how to live, pero actually, it doesn't say anything. Space in our hearts to understand what. So, yeah, I don't admire the quotes of M. Canare, but they are in the exam. So, yeah. And remember, remember that you have to think. Okay. So whatever you receive, you have to think about it. It's a crime if you receive something at school and then you don't think about it. Kanang giingon man ni sir, giingon man ni ma'am. So, siya. That is a crime, man. That is the very antithesis of schooling. Kabalo man ang antithesis. Mo na iyang greatest enemy ba? The greatest enemy of schooling is just blindly agreeing. Mogi ka na sa school because you have to think. Nga karon kay titagan ka sa teacher o mo na dili na ka mag-isip. You think na that is the correct answer. That is wrong. Nana ka sa school and you're doing that crime, right? So what I am modeling to you is that we don't have anything to do with the exam. Na naman ang exam, it's already there and inyuhan na lang ng ansiran. So we cannot contend with the exam. Dili na to maingon na mali man ang exam because it's already there. I-exam na ninyo hatag na sa teacher, right? But now we have the chance to talk about what appears in the exam and then we have the chance to talk about it and to discuss it and to think about it. So Na naman ang exam dira, you just have to familiarize these statements para kabalo ka sa mga answer. But always at the back of your mind, you have to remember, I must not agree blindly with what appears to the exam. If the exam tells me that this is the correct answer, okay, fine. For the points, okay, fine. But always remember na you have to really think about it. You can't disagree with with whatever the exam is telling us. Disagree with their statements. Think for yourself, man. Una-una nga, basta dili siya correct. Hindi. Think about it. Okay, if you're not thinking about it, may pag wala lang ka nag-eskwela, man. Ayaw dungag-dungag sa ka-stupid sa kalibutan, man. So, that is the point. Okay, so this ends the third batch of, or this is the fourth batch, I think. Fourth batch of our review. So in the next video, we are going to talk about this. Okay, kani last na ni siya nga part. So yeah, thank you very much for taking time, and then see you sa next video.